Okay, so linear inequalities. This is very, very similar to equations, right? So this is essentially the same idea as solving equations. So we solve linear inequalities the same way we solve equations, but there's one extra rule. Do you know what the extra rule is for when you're solving inequalities? Sometimes you have to flip the sign. When do you have to do that? Uh-huh. If you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to, I'm going to say turn the inequality symbol. I'll explain why I use those words in just a second. Okay, so we're going to do a bunch of examples, but if I had something like this, negative 3x is greater than 6, and I was going to solve this inequality, how would you solve for x here? You got to move the negative 3, right? How do you move it? You divide both sides by negative 3. Okay, so the negative 3's undo each other. They cancel out. We get x. What is 6 divided by negative 3? Negative 2. Okay, the whole idea of turning the inequality symbol, this greater than sign, it needs to go the other direction. It needs to turn to less than. A lot of people say flip the sign, and the reason why I don't like saying flip the sign, that's technically correct. We did flip that sign. The problem with flip the sign is a lot of people think flip the sign means turn this 6 divided by negative 3, it becomes a negative, which it does, but we also need to turn the inequality symbol. So make sure that you're turning this less than or greater than sign around, okay? So that's essentially what we're doing today. We're going to practice solving equations or inequalities. If you ever, in this case, we divided by negative 3, right? If I had this problem, this is a completely different problem. If I had 3x is greater than negative 6, how would I solve that one? Divide both sides by 3. Do I flip the symbol here? Do I turn it around the other way here? Why not? I didn't actually divide by a negative number. This negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. But I didn't, like this part right here, this was not negative. That was still positive. You have to actually divide by a negative number to flip the sign, okay? The other situation is when you multiply by a negative number. We don't have this quite as often, but if I had like x divided by negative 2 is greater than 3. In that case, how do I get x off? I'm sorry, how do I get the negative 2 off the bottom? Multiply by negative 2. Did I multiply both sides by a negative number? Yes, I multiply both sides by negative 2. So in this case, I have to turn the symbol. The negative 2's undo each other. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. And this needs to turn around the opposite way. Okay, so do you see when you turn the inequality symbol? Usually it's the last step because this is the last thing you do to solve for x. There's usually other things like adding, subtracting, doing other things. The last thing you do usually is multiplying or dividing by a negative number. Okay, so let's do a few different problems. Oh, there's one other thing. When you are writing your answer for these, you have to write an interval notation, okay? Interval notation is easiest to write whenever you have x on the left-hand side, because this says x is less than or equal to -6. If you graph this on a number line, we know it's going this direction. And it's a parenthesis there, remember? How do you write that in interval notation now? -infinity to -6. Remember that? It is much more difficult to write that in interval notation because it's hard to read. What does this say? It says -6 is less than x, but actually the way you would graph this one is this way. Okay, because if -6 is less than x, I want x to be all the numbers bigger than -6. It's kind of confusing. So what I'm trying to say is it's much easier if x is on the left-hand side, not on the right-hand side. So when you are solving, always move x to the left-hand side because it's much easier to finish off your answer that way. Okay, so let's do some problems together. Let's start off with pretty easy. 3x plus 4 is greater than or equal to 2x minus 6. Okay, so we are going to start off by getting all your x's on one side. It is easiest for inequalities to move all the x's to the left-hand side. So I need to move this 2x over here to the left-hand side. How am I going to move 2x? Subtract it from both sides. So I get 3x minus 2x is 1x. Bring down the plus 4. Bring down your greater than or equal to sign. Your 2x's undo each other, and I'm left with -6 over here. Now, how am I going to solve for x? Subtract 4. Do I have to flip the sign here? No, why not? I didn't multiply or divide. I subtracted here. You're allowed to subtract. So I get x is greater than or equal to -6 minus 4. It's -10. Okay, so let's graph that on a number line. On these problems, you'll ask to write your answer as an inequality, graph it on a number line, and then write an interval notation. So there's 3 parts to your answer here. To graph it on a number line, I need -10 on my number line. A number before it would be -11. A number after would be -9. Am I going to have a parenthesis or a bracket at -10? Bracket, because it has an equal to sign underneath it. Which way am I shading, to the left or to the right? To the right, because it's greater than. So when we write that in interval notation, it's going to be -10 to infinity. So there's the 3 parts to your answer. Okay, what about if I had 5 minus 2x is greater than 11? First thing we need to do is move that 5. How do you move the 5? Subtract it, because it is a +5, so you need to subtract it from both sides. So 5 minus 5, those undo each other. I'm left with -2x on the left-hand side is greater than 11 minus 5, which is 6. How do I solve for x here? Divide both sides by -2. Did I multiply or divide by a negative number? Yes, so this greater than sign needs to turn around to a less than sign. Okay, and the negative 2's undo each other, so I'm left with x is less than, what is 6 divided by negative 2? Negative 3. Go ahead and graph that on a number line and put it in interval notation. Okay, so when we graph it on a number line, which way am I shading? To the left. Is it a bracket or a parenthesis here? Parenthesis. And then when I put in interval notation, it is negative infinity to negative 3 with a parenthesis. Okay. Questions about that? Okay, look at this one, number 3. If I had 2 times x plus 2 is less than or equal to 3x plus 16 plus 2x. First thing you need to do is to distribute. So distribute your 2 into your parenthesis. What's 2 times x? 2x. 2 times 2 is 4. So 2x plus 4 is less than or equal to, on the right-hand side, 3x plus 16 plus 2x. Do you have any like terms that you can combine? Yeah, what is 3x plus 2x? 5x. Since they're on the same side, we don't have to subtract them. We just add them together. So 5x plus 16. At this point, you want to get your x's on one side. Okay, in an equation, it doesn't matter which side you get them on. On an inequality, you want them on the left-hand side. So I need to move 5x over here. How do I move 5x over here? Subtract it from both sides. Two x minus 5x is 3x plus 4 is less than or equal to 5x minus 5x. Those undo each other, and I'm left with 16. Oh, negative 3x, sorry. 2 minus 5 is negative 3. And then how do I solve for x from here? Subtract 4 from both sides. So I get negative 3x is less than or equal to 16 minus 4 is 12. How do I solve for x? Divide by negative 3. So I get x is less than or equal to 12 divided by negative 3. Oh, what did I forget? You gotta flip your sign. We divided by a negative number. So this, let me just mark all that out and start over. This needs to flip. I get x is greater than or equal to 12 divided by negative 3 is negative 4. So then on a number line, put negative 4. A number before it would be negative 5. A number after would be negative 3. Which way am I shading? To the left or to the right? To the right, bracket or parenthesis. Bracket at negative 4. Interval notation here would be -4 to infinity with a bracket. Questions about that? Okay, let's do one more. If we had -x plus 3 plus 2 is less than or equal to 3 times 2x minus 5 plus x. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is distribute that 3 into the parentheses. So I'm just going to rewrite it as -x plus 3 plus 2 is less than or equal to 3 times 2x is 6x. 3 times -5, -15, and then plus x. From here, you want to combine like terms on each side. So look at the left-hand side, -x plus 3 plus 2. Do I have any like terms I can combine? The 3 and 2. 3 plus 2 is 5, so it's just going to be -x plus 5 is less than or equal to, on the other side, 6x minus 15 plus x. Do I have any like terms there? 6x and x. 6x plus x is 7x minus 15. From there, if we were solving an equation here, I would probably add x to both sides and move the x's over to the right-hand side. Since it's inequality, though, it's best to keep your x's on the left-hand side. Okay, so I'm going to move the 7x over here by subtracting it. So -x minus 7x, -8x plus 5 is less than or equal to 7x minus 7x is 0. They undo each other. So -15. Now how am I going to solve for x? Subtract 5 from both sides. I get -8x is less than or equal to -20. How do I solve from there? Yeah, I'm going to divide both sides by -8. Did I multiply or divide by a negative number? Yes, I did. So I need to flip this sign around, make it greater than or equal to instead of less than or equal to. And the -8 cancel out, so I get x is greater than or equal to -20 divided by -8. First of all, is that a negative number or a positive number? Positive, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. I can also simplify it. 20 over 8, I can divide them both by 4, right? So I get 5 over 2. Or if you want a decimal there, what's the decimal there? 2.5. So on a number line, I'm going to have 5 over 2. That's going to be in between 2 and 3. Am I shading to the left or to the right? To the right, because it's greater than or equal to. And it's a bracket. So it's going to be in interval notation, bracket 5 over 2 to infinity. Questions about that? Okay, so we are going to stop there. On Wednesday, we will pick up with our next section. So you have some math homework on Math Excel. Make sure you're working on your math homework, and I will see y'all on Wednesday.